Namaste. Welcome, everybody. Hope you are all smiling. I hope you are all jiving. Howard, brother, how are you? Big love, big blessings. Sorry for the delay. Oh, I think Howard ran away. No, Howard didn't run away. Howard just had some play. Big love, dear hollow bone hawk, my beautiful. Sorry, I couldn't take your call now. I was just trying to fix the audio on my system, and I figured you'd realize that like we were here trying to save the world or something. It's not quite what we're doing, is it? But anyway, we're having a chit chat. I'm here with Shinobi, Toby Shinobi. I like to call him Obi-Wan Shinobi because it's the coolest name ever in the whole world. I wish I had a Star Wars name, to be honest. Star Wars is just so cool, man. You don't beat Star Wars, do you? Well, I mean, you try, but like, let's face it, who actually does? So yeah, we've got a cool little discussion here. For those who don't know Shinobi, he's a father, and he's a partner, and he's a researcher, and he's been diving deep into occult and mystical knowledge, and he loves language. He decodes language in a very natural and very organic way, which is very intuitive and very positively useful. So without any further ado, let's welcome dear Toby. And how are you? Oh, and you can see his YouTube and everything. Follow his YouTube. He's cool.
Yeah, I'm doing really good, Franklin. Yeah, all good here. We saw blue skies yesterday here in the UK, which was nice. Today was supposed to be even hotter, but unfortunately, there's like a white haze today because they were peppering the skies this morning. So that's a real shame. Because today's like the temperature's supposed to be dropping after today. We've had like a couple of like quite nice sunny hot days, which has been really nice. A little teaser of spring. So yeah, I'm good. If anyone wants to check out my YouTube, it's called Systematic Zoo. I've got 102 followers now. I was sort of like teetering on like 98 and then 99 for a while, so I've crossed that threshold. I just need to sort of up my game with creating content, uploading stuff. It's just having kids, man. You know how it is, just having the time and like having to set stuff up. You know, so yeah, there will be a time when I'll upload more solo content, but just not at the moment. But watch this space. I will be uploading stuff though. I've got quite a lot of tracks I actually want to upload to my YouTube. Like some like sort of like tribal jungle drum bass tunes I've made. Some of them are like 10 years old. A few mixes I'm going to upload as well. So I'll be uploading some music, some clips from my like truth and fiction book, like sci-fi novel. So I will be uploading lots and lots of stuff. Just watch this space. How you doing?
Hey, brother, I'm good. It's been a joyful Easter time with my boy. He's been properly a handful, but he's also been a joyful little bugger. And I get what you're saying with the whole idea of editing videos. I tried it, man. I've just about given up. No, I haven't. I am actually in the works of editing a couple of videos. It's just like, bloody hell, it's so much easier to just crank on the live, isn't it? Just crank it on and just go and just crank it off. It's done. Like, you don't have to, like, people don't realize how much work goes into editing a video. Bloody hell, I could have done like 10 lives. One edited video and 10 lives. To me, it's like I'm denying people possible like conversation to make the video look pretty. And like, I don't know whether the video looking pretty is like that important. Like, I don't even trim my beard much. I mean, I trimmed my beard a little the other day just because it was getting like so wild that like when I was eating, I was like, was that my beard? You know? I was like, I think I just ate my beard. So, but yeah, the bells and whistles, it's a pain in the butt. So otherwise, it's all good here. It's starting to get cool. As my beloved will tell you, it's nice here. It was getting warm before, and now it's just perfect. It's sweet spot weather. And quite excited about today. I mean, Rupus Negra, as the mythos goes, is very much about dragons. So it's probably going to be very close to your heart because you've been very, into the spirit of the dragon and researching the dragon and what it represents. I've also always had a very close place for serpents. Namaste, Mark. How are you doing? Klechka. I hope you're good. Did I say your name properly? By the way, I hope everybody that the audio is okay, that Toby's and my audio levels are similar enough in volume so people don't have to turn it up or turn it down. Let me know if there's any issues or discrepancies there. He said mine sounded soft, but it looked loud here in the studio with what the studio is telling me. So I don't want to mess with it, seriously. Who is that? Hello, I'm in a live, but I'll join later. Much love. Somebody just pinged me to join something. I'm not quite sure what that was. It was like some kind of a group chat. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was anyway, we'll see later. So yeah, man, Rupus Negra, the story of dragons. For those that don't know, BlackRock, the corporation that sells bombs, that helps Zionists do bad things to children en masse, basically, with cluster bombs and all of them lot. Yes, they use clever banking cartels like UBS, Swiss Bank to funnel the cash and the R&D and all of that so that they can research what's technically terrorist weapons of mass destruction. That's what a cluster bomb is. So, but I mean, BlackRock does all sorts of weapons. They are modeled upon this idea of Rupus Negra, and a lot of people don't realize the connection between our military, industrial, corporate structures and the North Pole and the South Pole too. So there's an interesting story about technology. So namaste. Every day, how you doing? I hope you're well. And Mark, I hope you're good. And everybody else in the chat, hope you're smiling. Hope you're all doing exactly what you're meant to be doing, finding your peace and your joy. So yeah, that's an interesting part of the conversation as well. And then again, of course, how this relates to other stories, because when we look at this Rupus Negra story, I mean, you could call it the Black Rock, you could call it the Insuta Magnetis. That was another name for it. So it's in the center of the Arctic Sea, as it's called. And then it's the World Anode. It was also called. This is a more modern idea. The 4 indrawing seas or rivers of Rupus Negra starts to sound more biblical, doesn't it? And the Great Magnetic North Pole, that's another aspect of how we can understand the idea and the mythos behind it. But I've heard stories speaking about 2 dragons protecting this area or this mountain, or sometimes in stories a dragon. There's often a dragon involved. And then Mount Meru is the same idea. In fact, let's take a look at Mount Olympus. Right? The idea of Mount Olympus. Why is it represented as a mountain? Is this some kind of a gateway to some other extra dimensional portals? I don't know. What are your thoughts, dear brother Shinobi?
Well, I've heard of a group called the Olympians, like similar to the Committee 300 and Les Circle, stuff like that, which is interesting because, of course, we have the Olympians, like the gods, like Zeus and Athena and stuff from Mount Olympus. But there is a group called the Olympians, so I wonder if there's a correlation there between this place and that group, probably. And yeah, in regards it being a portal to somewhere, I mean, in the stories, it says that there's a whirlpool, which sort of reminds me of a vortex, and it's like vortexes bring things into this realm and they take things out. Like there's something quite magical about vortexes, and magnetism as well. And all compasses point north towards this black rock. And I just find it very interesting how there's 4 rivers, because that reminds me of like the 4 heads, and that's like 4 thought, and our 4 thoughts, and this area of our forehead is the prefrontal cortex, is related to like critical thinking and stuff, and magnetism messes this up, and magnetism can actually detach us from God or source, or weaken people's faith in the afterlife, which is very interesting, because the fact that it's called Black Rock, and we have a corporation called Black Rock, who I think they have $15 trillion in hedge funds, like an unimaginable number of money they have. And of course, money is currency, which is to do with current, electricity and magnetism as well, of which we are electric magnetic beings. And this whole energy crisis, like we can talk a little bit more about that later, how that kind of relates to the currency as well, because I'll just mention now briefly that this energy crisis isn't just to do with fuel and petrol that we fill up our cars with and food and stuff. It's to do with our etheric body and our etheric double, also known as the car. And of course, we put petrol into cars, and we also have an etheric double that the Rosicrucians viewed as a horse, and the horse is related to spirit as well. So this kind of field we have around us, like our aura, I guess, like our gold, our light we emit. This is kind of what's been under attack for like a while via like frequencies and stuff, just our energy being drained by stuff that's going on. So yeah, this energy crisis that we're having at the minute is much more than just the material. It's to do with the etheric body as well, which of course relates to currency and energies. It's all connected, and then it doesn't surprise me that Black Rock has a story about dragons, because dragons protect gold. As far as my understanding, they're sort of guardians of the threshold. So if it is a portal, this Black Rock, perhaps there's dragons there like guarding some kind of portal. Also, what this kind of signals to me is like the world soul, like the center of the earth, the eye, the Black Rock with the 4 rivers, and there being a whirlpool, because our eyes are like our eyes are black, and like deep black, and our eyes can actually emit light, even though there's black in the center. They actually emit light. They take in light, but also you can look into people's eyes and they emit a type of light. So I'm just wondering if there's a correlation between the black sun and Black Rock as well, and that potentially if it's a portal or something, rather than when we pass on going outwards, we go in, but maybe we don't go into ourselves. Maybe our light goes into the center of the earth, in towards this Black Rock, in like following these rivers of water, these waterways, and perhaps, something magical happens there. But Yeah, I'm not really too sure. I don't really know too much about black rock. I'm looking forward to sort of tying some threads together to do with DNA, gold, dragons, currency, energy, the center, and how we've been pulled away from our center or the center, like pulled off in all directions. And then the black as well. We've always been kind of made to fear the black, the dark. And it's interesting, it's called black rock. Like, is it a rock, or is it just like, are we in like an eye? Is the earth just like one big eye, like drawing in light? And yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just spitballing, but I'm looking forward to this conversation anyway.
Yeah, brother, the connection between the black sun and black rock, that's an interesting notion. And I think there might and surely must be some kind of a connection, because like the black sun could be a relation to the other side of the frequency, right? So when we're talking about the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can see, touch, and interact with, and then that part of the electromagnetic spectrum that's beyond our sphere of phasing, or it's not in phase with us, I wonder whether there's a connection there. And I think like the connection might be Black Rock or Mount Meru. It could be the symbolic representation of a doorway that leads between the worlds, between different spheres of being. Like Mount Meru is the abode of the gods, right, in the Vedic cosmology. And the same as basically what Mount Olympus is to the Greeks. Like this, there's not really much of a difference. And the black rock represents this mythical center of the world where you can access other dimensional planes of existence. So it obviously relates to the axis mundi specifically, and is really when we speak of black rock and we speak of axis mundi, we are essentially speaking of the tree, the great tree of life. I don't think we should draw a distinction between them, because I think they are pretty much the same, one and the same thing. And I also get the sense that when we are sort of considering, and my audio is not going weird, is it? At all?
No, all good.
Okay, just because I noticed this little thing seems to be vibrating sometime. I wonder if it's my word or my breath that's causing it to vibrate. That's interesting. So yeah, I do think that there is this sort of relation to the idea of black rock and the idea of what it represents to us, and just exactly where we are sort of physically rooted. That idea of the axis mundi, or the world tree that connects all the hidden worlds, right? It's represented even as a stairway or a ladder to heaven, Oh, by the way, namaste, dear Rob. Welcome there, dear brother. I hope you're well. Namaste, dear Salad. Hope you're well. Whoops, I got to go quickly and plug in my machine before it crashes. Please, brother, if I do fall off, I'll be back as soon as I can get my plug from the other room.
Sure, all good. Cool. I'll try and hold the fort then, and try not to stray off too far. Yeah, so I mean, I don't really know too much about black rock, so I was just going to bounce off what Franklin had to say, as I do. Like, that's what I do. Just try and tie many things together to try and see the picture a bit clearer. But on talking of like the world tree, that's interesting. Is the world tree related to Yggdrasil? Is that how you pronounce it? Yggdrasil? Because if that is, so let me check quickly. So 3 fates. Because if that is the case, yeah, it's very difficult to pronounce, so forgive me. So I believe it's at the base of Yggdrasil, there are the three fates called the Norns, who are the past, present, and future. I've got these written down somewhere, so let me just find that so I can speak with a bit more clarity. But why this is interesting is because from what I read, they were at the base of the tree, or like at the well of the tree. So if Black Rock, Rupus Negra is to do with the well tree or Yggdrasil, like the center, so the tree goes up and outwards, and then the roots come back to the central point, and the central point is the tree, basically, is the center of the tree, the trunk. These three fates that weave destiny, past, present, and future, what I've read is that they're at the well of a tree, and obviously a well is to do with waterways, is to do with water, and these four rivers all go to the central point. So that's very, very interesting, and also the four rivers relating to four thoughts as well, and four heads. It is interesting that that some people wear a black cube here, yeah, on their forehead. It's interesting. Like, is that symbolic of Rupus Negro, the black cube on their foreheads? Because I know the black cube is the Kaaba cube, but why on the forehead? Because you have the four rivers, the four heads meeting at Black Rock. Do you know about that, Franklin? Do you know why they have it specifically on their forehead?
Well, I think it has to do with just acknowledging the worship of Saturn, the worship of the deity that relates to the principle of time. And so obviously the cube is Saturn's emblem, and it represents the etheric plane, actually, the structure of the etheric plane. You see the cube holds within it the seven rays. So the seven rays are able to shine through the cube, and it shines in seven ways from seven directions. The six directions shine inwards, and the seventh direction shines in the opposite way. So we call that contraction that produces the radiance, and then the other six principles that dance around that principle. So yeah, the cube is an interesting one, and obviously it represents fate, destiny, chance, because of its situation with time. And I wonder, the thing about Rupus Negra is there's not that much that we know about it, because there were these clever people that came along in the Middle Ages, and they had a cross, and they had like the equivalent of matches. And whenever they found books, they burnt them. Yeah, it was like a fashion in this organization, or let's just call it what it was. It was a cult. Okay, it was a book burning cult, and this book burning cult basically, well, they burnt people as well. Let's not pretend they didn't burn people and drown people. And they had mastered torture in a way that very few organizations ever did. So if it weren't for the Catholics, Guantanamo Bay would not be the place it is today. Let's just be honest about this, right? So a lot of the information has deliberately been destroyed and hidden. But like it's preserved in a sense. So the Saturn. Okay, so here's the connection, and I'll dive into it. I'll show you it from a shamanic perspective. So the shamanic perspective is to meditate on the principle of rhythm. The lords of rhythm in Hermetics is the lords of time. the lords of time and the lords of rhythm is Saturn. The lords of time and of rhythm controls the functions of the etheric plane. And so Saturn's influence on the structure, the formation of things, and the way that they change and develop in terms of the ravages of time being carved upon all things, is what we're talking about. So the shamanic tradition of meditating on rhythm is, in a sense, meditating on the cube, but not directly, if that makes sense. But the principle that is the foundation and the idea upon which the cube is resting is this idea of principle of rhythm. So why do shaman meditate upon the principle of rhythm? Why is the drum so important for the work? Well, the drum represents the rhythm. Beating out the rhythm on the drum literally puts you into a trance. And it has been discovered over eons that the easiest way to fall into a trance is to get your mind riding on a rhythm. And if your mind is riding on a rhythm, then you're more likely to relax and let go of the physical plane and get caught in the rhythmic tones of vibration. And in the rhythmic tones of vibration, you will be able to travel outside of your body into the spiritual planes. Now we speak about Mount Meru. This is in these planes of existence are beyond physical. So if you want to reach Mount Meru, or if you want to reach Rupis Negra, it might not be exactly a physical place, but there might be a physical location where you can reach this place. If you go to the right physical location, it might be the place where this veil is thinnest to reach this place. And so, I think that's quite important. Hello, I'm on a live right now. Could you call back in like an hour and a bit, please? I'm on a live on YouTube, a live show. Thank you very, very much. Bye.
So,
yeah, it was my bank calling because there was an issue with. I've got to talk to them. Had to go into the bank yesterday, and they had to scan my fingers and my face and my biometrics, and it's all this nonsense. But anyway, the banks are.
Speaking of biometrics, do you remember I had an issue with getting onto StreamYard a couple of weeks ago because I had to reset my phone and it said I had to prove I was 18. I've never proved I'm 18. It says in my settings I need to prove I'm 18, but I haven't, and I'm still using my phone. So I think that's just a way to catch people when they update their phone, because you can decline it, but I think most people will give their ID or a photo of their passport. So that's interesting. I've never had to prove. I've never had to give ID to use this latest update from Apple. So it's quite funny.
Yeah, it's I don't know if I'd use the word funny. I'd be like a little bit concerned. It's like a pain in the butt. I'm so glad I've never been drawn to Apple. I always thought Apple seemed a bit. It seemed like a bit of a fruitcake option. But yeah, man, that's evil. That's plain, because then they want to keep a copy of your identification on their database. And what right do they have? You bought a phone from their company.
Yeah,
that's all. They have a law. They have an obligation to you, having given them money. So technically speaking, you can then go back to them and say, listen, I'm not prepared to give my ID in. Can I please have a refund for my phone? Or will you bypass this nonsense because you don't have a right to my ID? Thank you. I bought this phone on a credit card. Credit cards are for adults. The person who bought this phone is an adult. You know that. If you don't want to update your records, then please give me back my money so I can buy a different model phone. And I think you would be within your right to hold them accountable in that way. And I think you could get an ombudsman to argue. If they don't, you call your bank and they'll give you an ombudsman. It should be free of charge. And you have the ombudsman approach him and say, listen, this is unconstitutional. This is a consumer that bought one of your products. If you're not going to service the product, then you need to refund him. He's not prepared to give you his ID documents. because it's not required by law. That's the end of this. And you'll probably find that there's a way that they can work around it for you, because they won't want to lose the money, I bet.
Yeah, well, you got to laugh because I can just see the kind of the drip of them trying to make people feel comfortable with digital ID or constantly proving who they are. But it's they're trying to do it different ways. For example, like had to return something to Amazon last year, and they said I had to send a photo of my ID, and I was like, I'm not doing that. I buy stuff from you. I've never had to prove who I am to buy something. So to return this, I'm not giving you my ID. And I did say to them I'd go to the ombudsman or take legal action, and they just let it drop. And I think they've probably let that go now. There probably was a time, and I don't know why they just want as much data on people as possible, don't they? They just want to know, like, that's the new currency, isn't it? And I think that's relevant to this conversation, is currency and data, you know, and mining our gold, you know, like the Anunnaki coming here to mine gold, you know. Was it real gold? Yes, but everything is symbolic, it's metaphysical, and it's physical at the same time. You know, and now we've got mobile phone, we've got these devices which we've kind of changed to ourselves, like shackled to us, and like whether people probably aren't aware of the amount of information they give away freely, like Facebook being created the day DARPA's LifeLog finished. It's all data collection. I think when people start realizing that our true currency is actually really our wisdom. Wisdom is the highest currency there is, and that seems to be what's extracted. You know, taking away knowledge and taking away intuition, and that ties into the ape sphere, which is ape Sophia, which is eating Sophia, eating our wisdom, our spark. And when people realize that we don't need external, like, money, our true money is our willpower, our core, our electrical current, you know, it's easy to say that, of course, we need money or currency to buy things. But with the current situation as it is at the moment, with the economy and stuff like that, perhaps there will be a time where our true currency will actually be our essence of who we are, like being able to kind of trade and swap skills and actually use our potential rather than all just being exactly the same. All, like, people in groups going to do a dead-end job just so they have money just to buy food. Where if things do collapse, then perhaps people will start looking inwards and being like, actually, maybe now I can start doing what I really want to do, and kind of, you know, drawing that energy from within rather than always seeking energy outside of themselves via, you know, this fake money.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, hallelujah to that. You know, we are definitely living in a very twisted world, and our twisted world is sadly, well, you know, it's well, it's not a very good look. Let's call it what it is, right? It's not a very good look at all. And I think, like, when we get right down to it, it's quite important for us to recognize. Lovely to have you here, Lam Angelina, and everybody else that's been joining, sending you all big love and big blessings. Yeah, you know, I think it's a big deal when we look at this. What's going on here? Sorry, something just happened. Oh gosh, this is what happens when you touch the wrong button, right? Okay, you touch the wrong button and your ScreenYard, they got all these new things. There's a word there, says style. If you try and tap it to make it go away, it changes your whole thing. It's like, what have you done to me? What are you guys Why do you have to change it? It was perfect the way it was. The layout was just right. So yeah, getting back to the whole story of the Rupis Negra, and so we've got another story, the story of Shiva and Kailashi, and Kailashi is obviously often compared to and considered to be this mountain, right? This it's often mixed up in the mythos, and Kailashi is the high mountain where Shiva's abode is. And they have a mountain in the Himalayas that they've sort of named Kailashi, which looks like, well, it looks more like a pyramid than a mountain. Have you looked into the story of Mount Kailash?
No, I've never heard that name, to be fair.
Man, I'll definitely have to send you some information about it, because so the mountain looks more like a pyramid than a mountain with ice on it. And there's all these weird things that happen. No aircraft flies over it. Aircrafts can't fly too close to it because they have anomalies, magnetic anomalies, all sorts of things happen. Equipment starts going wrong. The few people that have climbed the mountain, and there've been the number of groups that have tried climbing the mountain, nobody has made it to the top. When the people climb up, weird things start happening. Like, it's not as high as Mount Everest, right? The stuff doesn't happen on Mount Everest. The stuff happens on Mount Kailash, and it's not more treacherous than Mount Everest to climb. But what it is it's got these other phenomenon, and so there are many ideas that believe it could be some very ancient structure that was built like a kind of a pyramid, maybe a place where you could launch massive crafts from the top, right? Like maybe a mountain was turned into a pyramid or something. Who knows what kind of technologies the ancients had. But yeah, so the Mount Kailash has got these weird stories. And of the groups that have gone up the most, they all passed away within 2 or 3 years of natural causes of old age. So time starts to distort when people go up there. They notice their fingernails growing at accelerated rates, and the hair on their body growing at like their fingernails are just suddenly getting really long. They've got to cut their nails again and again, and their hair. And they notice that they're like losing their minds, and there's weird sort of stuff happening around. And they come down, and those that did go up and survived and made it down, they all passed away of natural causes in old age, even though they went up there when they were young. So you went up there in your mid-20s or your 30s, you came down, within 5 years you passed away of old age, right? These weird kind of anomalies. So there's lots of stories.
So what's the connection between Shiva and this mountain? Because I've looked and it said there's a theory that the face of Lord Shiva was seen on Mount Kailash, and I'm mentioning this because CERN have a statue of Shiva, and since CERN have started doing their thing, time seems to be moving faster. So there's a correlation between CERN, Shiva, and this mountain and time, and people going up this mountain and time for them seeming to move faster. So yeah, I was wondering what the correlation between Shiva and this mountain or time could be.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting. I don't know whether Mount Kailash is let's put it this way, the mountain that they call Kailash. I don't know whether that is Mount Kailash of the ancient Himalayas. I think that Mount Kailash could be another name for Mount Meru, could be another name for Rupus Negra. This is my idea, because people at some point went to Mount Kailash and they saw Shiva's face on the mountain and they thought this must be the holy mountain. But the idea of Kailash and Shiva is that Shiva lived on the top of this mountain. That was his abode. That was his home. That was where he practiced his tapasya, his sadhana. That was where Parvati went to join Shiva to practice the tapasya and the sadhana, so that she could become perfected and purified enough that he would give her shots. Yes, you heard me right? That he would give her shots, which he did. He was like, wow, I'm impressed. Get the kit off, sweetheart. You and me, let's roll. You know, 2,000 years later, how was that? She's like, whoo, still recovering, you know. But so that's the like the comical version of the story, but that's really what it is, you know. She wanted to get Shiva's love. She wanted to show Shiva that her devotion was pure. And so Shiva rewarded her with, you know, the way a man rewards a woman. And so that's, you know, that's the story of Shiva and Kailash. It's his abode. It's the place of spiritual, it's the spiritual center of the world. It's the spiritual mountain. It's the peak of consciousness that humanity can reach to in the physical body. And it represents that point of allowing oneself to become liberated. So Shiva represents liberation in a sense. So the connection there with CERN would be Shiva is the shaman. Shiva is the one that opens the doorways to all the mystic powers and the mystic knowledge. And Shiva is the one that can, you know, open the doorway to the other worlds, right? To the underworld, to the spiritual worlds, and absorb his consciousness out of his physical body and translocate his consciousness elsewhere. And so you can see how that CERN would be like tapping into that, because they want to open a doorway or a portal. And so portals are Shiva's domain, and Mount Kailash is the greatest portal. But I believe that what they call Kailash today might not be Mount Kailash of the Vedas. I think that Mount Kailash and Mount Meru might be the one and the same, coming from different legends and different ideas within the cosmology of the Vedics.
Cool. Earlier I was talking about the three fates and the base of Yggdrasil. I just want to read something out, because earlier I was talking, I think, where you just like nipped off somewhere quickly and I couldn't find my notes, but I found my notes now, because I was researching the weird, because I thought that was quite a good place to start with the origins of like words and language and fate and relating to the weird. So what I came across is that the weird is a term strongly associated with the Norns in Norse mythology. The three Norns, or Nornir, are powerful female deities. There's Urd, which is past, which sounds like heard, which of course when you hear something, the sound has come from the past. And Verdandi, present, reminds me of very dandy. You know, and someone's like, how are you? Like, you know, not that you'd say it now, but being very dandy means that you're present, right? So for dandy is present, and skald is future. That reminds me of, you know, skull, which is supposed to mean like cheers or cup or bowl, which doesn't really make much sense. What does make more sense is when you go skull, you're going like to the future. That makes more sense, because skald is the future. So these three fates dwell at the roots of Yggdrasil, the world's tree, and they determine the fates of gods and mortals, weaving the web of weird and tending to the world tree. So, well, I find that interesting, because earlier I was looking something up. What was it? Let me see if I can find this tab. Yeah, it's to do with Ragnarok. And so Yggdrasil will shudder during Ragnarok, the apocalypse or epoch collapse, but it will serve as a shelter for survivors who will repopulate the world. Now that reminds me of an ark, and then that is also the ark, the AKH. So in Egypt you have the ka, the ba, and the ark, AKH, and then the ark means I, or big brother. So I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced ark, because of course an ark is a carrier. And then you have Noah's ark during the last cataclysm, which carried light, I guess, whether it was people or information. I like to think it was more carrying information or light, whether it was like an actual boat or whether it was just carried something on water like light travels on water. And I find it's very interesting that with Ragnarok, it mentions that that it will serve as a shelter for the survivors who will populate the world. And this is the world tree. And this is interesting. If we all go towards the center of this world tree, or Rupus Negro, you know, when we die, when we pass on, I find this really interesting because it's quite hard to. It makes sense to me in my mind. It's quite hard to express it, but if you look at your eye, we have a black hole in the center. It's like a black sun. Like I said earlier, it draws in light, but at the same time, we emit light as well from our eyes. They're like the windows of the soul. This black rock, to do with like the world soul, I think it is like the world tree, and that we all go there, and that perhaps our sort of light is collected there. I don't know. I'm gonna have to work on this because it kind of makes sense to me. I'm just trying to connect too many threads to like Ragnarok, that it'll be a shelter for survivors who will repopulate the world, this black rock or black sun or this center of the earth, and that all mortals and gods will go there at one time or another. So we have the Saturn connection, the center of Saturn's cube, number 5, Mercury. And this ties into Pegasus as well, Mercury, messenger of the gods, because Pegasus could travel between the realm of mortals and planet Olympus, Black Rock. So Pegasus could actually travel there and back. And I find that very interesting, that there's a connection between this black cube, whether this black rock is shaped like a mountain or is it shaped like a cube. I don't know. Who's seen it? In the drawings, it's like a mountain, but I do certainly believe that there's a link between the arc, this mountain, black cube, black rock, the center, of course, Mercury, the center of Saturn's cube. There's a lot of threads. So apologies for people for throwing loads of stuff out there, just trying to figure this out. Some of this stuff I've been hearing for the first time. But yeah, it's certainly very interesting that Yggdrasil would be related to this black rock, like the center, and then the 3 fates, past, present, future, all dwell in the center of this, of this realm.
Yeah, that's, I suppose, very much a part of, of the mythos. Is the tree of life is a very old version of the idea, which relates to the axis mundi. And so when a shaman dances around the totem, right, what they're effectively doing is they're dancing around this. They're dancing around this diagonal shaft. And this diagonal shaft, which is 4, 5, and 6, with Mercury in the center, number 5. 4 pegged into the ground, the future, the head of the dragon. So the part that swallows, when we're talking about in terms of Ouroboros, and Uranus. Who's Anus? Uranus. Pegged into the ground with Venus, the harmonizer, as the apex of the proverbial aerial, right? Aerial, like giving off vibrations, receiving vibrations. And with the centrifugic and the centripetal forces representing the potential for chakra, for spinning. So you can see like this 4, 5, and 6 running diagonally from the top left corner represents the Yggdrasil. But that's like the Yggdrasil being turned. If this was the hand of a clock and number 4 was the center of the clock, then the hand of the clock would have to go from what it is now at about almost just past 4 p.m. It would have to go up to 3 p.m., then 2 p.m., then 1 p.m., and then 12. So it'd have to go up 4 hours, maybe just a little bit more than 4 hours in order to reach the point that it was at. So, we can see how this representation is really the tree of life. And this is the totem pole that the shaman will dance around. This is the maypole. This is what the maypole dance is really all about. Yeah? You guys are like in England, it's going to be time for the maypole dance in like what, a few weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, and May is the 5th month as well.
Exactly. May is very much the 5th month. And the beginning of May starts Gemini. I mean, the end of the beginning of Gemini starts in the last part of May. So that's quite interesting there to bear that and hold that into awareness, where the Taurus starts in April, and the Aries starts in March, and so forth. So there's definitely a connection going on here with these signs, the way that they relate, and also the fact that we will be able to transform much of our world as we move forward, right? There's no doubt about that. So this also represents the future and the past in terms of time. And what does rhythm relate to? Rhythm relates to oscillating fields of vibrations. So you can see literally when you look at the sigil, right? What does the sigil look like? It literally looks like a wavelength. Look at it, right? It's going up, it's going down. So it's a wavelength. It's showing you the potentials for wavelength. The blue line is the central line, and the green line is how far up it can go, and the orange line is how far down it can go. And this is when the wavelengths are superimposed over each other, right? Whoa, okay. When the trough of the wavelength is superimposed. So this represents a toric field, right? This diagram. And that's why the enneagram is there to represent the Taurus, the principles, the sephirot, in the way of that this toric field manifests itself. So we can then understand that the very nature of Yggdrasil itself represents a toric field, right? And representing a toric field, that makes Yggdrasil really more to do with the structure of this physical reality, right? Giving us an insight into the laws of nature, the tree of life. And what is the tree represent? It represents the number 3, right? It's no accident that tree and 3 are so closely related, in terms of the acoustics of the sounds. And so the tree represents 3 because it's got the roots, it's got the leaves, and the apex of the tree, and it's got the central branches and the foundations, the trunk of the tree. And so these 3 principles are what the tree represents, the number 3. And so, this is why the shamanism, you have the 3 worlds, right? And those 3 worlds represent different modes of traveling into the unseen. And that's what the principle of rhythm. So we're back to the Saturn square now. And this is obviously Saturn's sigil, Saturn's cube, Saturn's number square. This is all very much the dynamics and mechanics of Saturn's square that we're looking at here. This is Saturn. This is Saturn's square. So when we look at that, we get a fairly good idea of just exactly, what is the structure of reality. And it's universal, whether you're looking at it from Vedic cosmology of Ida, Pingala, and Shashumna, or, whichever system you go with. It's the same idea. Basically, he shouldn't. When I say he, I mean, the brother, the big brother, the powers that be, they shouldn't be trying to push us into a cubicle where we work into a mold, because when you do that, you stimulate the opposite forces. This is why we're going to be okay. Because like when you push us into a corner, we bounce back. This is what we do. And you know, the nature of life is such that it wants to grow. And you can try and stop a tree from growing, but it's gonna find a way, and will end up breaking your pot.
Yeah, man. Sometimes trees and like, especially like even like dandelions and stuff like that, they grow, they seem to just come up from the concrete. Like they can't be stopped. Um I've been thinking, well, I've been using the analogy, the tapestry, as in like seeing the world as a tapestry, and that you know, we kind of weave these threads of like mythology, etymology, symbology, and stuff to see reality, or what I call the tapestry, clearer. And what's come to me recently is that the tapestry is the tap is tree, like the tap meaning the flow or the water, or like the memory, like where things come from. It comes from the roots of the tree. And that was before I started looking into the weird and then the fates, and then my mind was blown when I found out that there's a that's where the fates weave or spin the threads of like of destiny. It's so interesting because like the tapestry is the tap is tree, and then this sort of ties into the vortex in the center, by Black Rock, because that spin seems to be like the vortex, which is the weaves, which is like the weaving. And it's so interesting because also the seeds of a tree, which like we are, I guess we're seeds of the world tree, like we're connected to the world tree or the tapestry. And that the seeds of the tree have spread out, and then for a seed to grow it needs both mem, water, and ori, light. And that is the trinity, is like the child or the seed which has the potential to become the tree. But it needs the water, and then it needs the light, which is the water is the divine feminine, is the depth, is the deep, is the roots, is the memory, is the you know, the memory. And then the light is this sort of infinite expansion of growth, which the sort of seed grows and branches out towards, like red light, blue light. So yeah, that's really, really interesting. And it reminds me of the placenta as well, because like the placenta is the place in which we enter. You know, the placenta is where we enter. And if you look at a placenta, it looks like the world's tree. The placenta looks like a tree. And that's so interesting because this tree like doesn't just go out and stop. If you look at our veins, they look like trees. Lightning looks like branches of trees. Of course, you have trees as well. Like this branching out is everywhere. You have mycelium under the ground, which is all connected. Like this is all threads of the tapestry in which we're in. So yeah, I find that really, really interesting. Yeah, I've actually been trying to design a symbol, or like for a flag, with a friend recently, and I think like we've decided, oh, it's very important to have two dragons, possibly the Algiz rune, if that's how you pronounce it. But you know, I think sigils and symbols are very important, and there's not really like any symbols like people can, well, I personally feel like I can get behind, like the St. George cross. that's not a flag I will ever get behind. I know that here in England, it used to be a white dragon, Albion, but I do like there always seems to be one dragon. You know, you have the Welsh red dragon, Albion white dragon, but I think two dragons seem to be so much like more fitting. Like, you know, because you have the Caduceus, you know, you have the two polarities, and then the central point of the Algiz rune, which branches out into three. So yeah, working on that at the moment, just trying to work out which kind of colors do we use. Red, black, and white. I've been quite drawn to orange, gold, and green recently. But yeah, just something I'm working on.
Yeah, totally, brother. You know, the Double Dragon. I mean, it was a pretty cool game when I was a kid. Double Dragon. Whoo, whoo, whoo. You did that little elbow trick, didn't you? Whoo, whoo. There's two little guys, double dragons, and they would like beat up all these guys who were coming. Like these guys kidnapped your girlfriend or something, and two brothers go out and they like beat up everybody, and then you rescue the girl at the end of the game. And we all used to love this, and it's got this music. Oh gosh, Double Dragon. You know, this theme of Double Dragon has always been a big one. You know, and the two dragons looking. This is a caduceus symbol. You know, you were mentioning the word tapas, right? And I don't know if you know this. So let me pull it up for you. But tapas basically in Sanskrit, right? Tapas is like your the work that you do. Oh, there we go. It's on. So the tapas is the work that you do. Yeah, your spiritual training techniques that you do that will bring the you know. So tapas, Sanskrit, it's a profound concept originating from the root tap, to heat, to burn, to shine. So it has to do with inner heat, it has to do with kundalini, spiritual discipline and austerity used to burn away past karma, impurities, and ego. In yoga philosophy, it is the third niyama. So that's a personal practice that represents, you know, being focused, being dedicated to spiritual growth or personal growth. So anyway, that's tapas, right? And if you add the word iya, as in like the Enki's, you know, original name, if you add the word iya onto it, yeah, then you get tapasya. So you can hear you said tapasya, which it means your austerities, your penance, your intense spiritual disciplines, and also coming from the root of the same word, and it's related to its deep underlying functions of reaching into the unknown, right? To purify yourself so that you can transcend your limitations of physical karma and be able to become omnipresent and gain the insights from otherworldly perspectives. So there's an idea which is interesting when you look at just what the word tapasya means. Oh, nice. Nice. They made it nice and small for me. Isn't that nice of them? You got to love it when StreamYard decides, like, hey, we're going to do you a great favor today. We're going to make it so that you cannot access. Great. So without me doing anything, StreamYard has made it that I can't access any of this stuff. And I wonder why they did that. Remove from the studio. Will that change it? No, they won't change it. They refuse to change it. So it is what it is. There we go. So I was able to rescue it. So, you know, the whole idea of tapasya is basically that spiritual training and practice that leads to liberation. And, you know, you mentioned as well the four rivers, right? And I think it's quite important when we're looking at the four rivers. So here we can get an insight into it as well, you know. Before presenting, remove other media streams. I don't understand why it's being like this. It's being really difficult. Oh, remove. Oh, okay. There we go. That was still up here. So then we get an idea of Mount Meru, right? So this is obviously the abode of the deities. The four indrawing seas, the area surrounding Rupus Negra, was described as Invencio Fortunata, quoted by Mercator, as a place where four great seas divide the north. You know that map picture that we know so well? So these four great seas come together, four great rivers, four great countries, or indrawing seas, and they meet in a central point, and there's these powerful whirlpools there. And so this idea of the four rivers, I think, is also one that's also quite, quite a big one to recognize and to realize how fundamentally important this whole story is. And that, it's quite easy for us to get sort of a little bit fundamentally lost when we look at this. And so where is the rest of our image? Where is it? You are live. Okay, so I seem to be live. Oh, why would it do that? It just does. Okay. It just does. It just does. Anyway. So there we go. That's what it does. It's not what you're looking for, but it is what you get. I do think as well when and sorry for that, I was just noticing how StreamYard keeps changing the layout of the way it looks. Like now I can't see the little the two there's two different streams running on YouTube. It's hidden one from me, which is very strange. But yeah, it's quite fundamental to understanding exactly what it is that we are sort of looking at here on a more sort of spiritual domain. There we go. It came back. Cool. Thank you, StreamYard, for keeping me on my toes and exciting me, changing the things, making things disappear and reappear again. But I think like when we look at the deeper sort of conceptual ideology or the idea behind a concept like Rupus Negra, I think it also represents that the way the myth has been told, that we need to look up towards some center. We need a big brother. We need a god. We need a king, right? Rupus Negra has often been related to the kings, to the rulers. And so the ruler becomes the embodiment of Rupus Negra. So Rupus Negra is on the earth the representation of the axis mundi in the galaxy, the galactic center around which everything revolves. And the king is what everybody in society revolves around. So the idea of Rupus Negra could be related into how they duped us into believing we needed kings, believing we needed to be ruled, believing we needed some power above us, a big brother, a big dad, whatever we want to call this entity of people or a person that would be in charge, telling everybody else what you have to do, or else we will do what we want to do. And I think like that's another element to the story. Like there's definitely a brainwashing element to this as well. And it could be one of the reasons why there's not much written about it, because maybe people that were asking were excluded fundamentally. I don't know. What do you think about that as a narrative, that it's part of a brainwashing technology and tool?
What do you mean it's used? Could be used as a brainwashing tool?
Well, maybe we've got these legends of Rupus Negra as well because they had to explain to us why we need a king. Well, why do we need to bow to this guy on the throne? Well, you see, he represents Rupus Negra. And Rupus Negra represents the center of the galaxy, the center of the world, the center of the universe. And now he is the center of your world. He's your king. You all revolve around him. You've got to move circles around this guy. He's going to make the decisions. He's going to control you. Oh, right. So we need this guy. Yes, you need this guy. It's the way of the world. Look, Rupus Negra. It's there. You need a representative of Rupus Negra because Rupus Negra is the king of the world. Like the whole world moves around it, as the idea goes. So that's why I mean, like it was definitely used as a brainwashing technique. Why else would we have needed to accept royalty, blue bloods, to rule us?
Well, I guess I can't really see how it relates to outsourcing our power other than it representing our center and to do with magnetism as well, because it seems that, well, obviously you have BlackRock, the corporation, who like own pretty much everything, and they're named after this BlackRock. There's old world maps showing these 4 rivers and BlackRock. We're clearly being lied to about what this realm is. To what degree, we don't know. But what my perspective on this realm is that it's infinite, that there is no end to it, and that if there's an ice wall, that represents fear and the unknown, and that the ice wall melting is people letting go of their fear, hence wanting to block out, hence the powers that be, the archons, wanting to block out the sun, keep it cold, keep it cool. AI likes it cold as well, so that all fits too. And I kind of find it quite hard, like disconnecting from the world soul, because it's like our center is the center. We are the world. It's not separate from us. The obfuscation of there being a central point in this realm, and that it being magnetic, and it being 4 rivers, and also being called 4 heads, and we have our 4 heads here where our critical thinking is, and our 4 heads seem to be what is under attack. Our forethought or foresight, our kind of clarity, clear cognition, all relates to the central point. This central point that we have, our anchor. It all seems to fit. Also, in my research I've been doing today, looking at this, these 4 rivers relate to the Garden of Eden as well. And I've always thought, with how I kind of decipher language frequency, is Eden is hidden. So the Garden of Eden is the Garden of hidden, which relates to black or dark. Because with language, like black is be lack, is sometimes seen as like negative, black, darkness, whereas the light has lie in it. So I've always been drawn to the darkness. And perhaps this black mountain isn't a mountain, perhaps it's a black hole. Perhaps it's a portal, the eye of the world, the central eye, the pillar, the central pillar. And yeah, I mean, yeah, perhaps this black rock as well. I'm using the thread that in Ragnarok it mentions Yggdrasil, and it mentions that I've actually forgotten what it mentions. It mentions that the tree will shudder during the apocalypse, but it will serve as a shelter for the survivors who repopulate the world. Perhaps this central point, perhaps Black Rock is like, perhaps it's to do with like data, because currency is data, and perhaps there's like, perhaps that's the greatest library, perhaps that's the greatest library, perhaps that's where like the Akashic records is related to, or like this field of our collective memory, which ties into this whirlpool, which ties into these threads of destiny, these three fates, which weave this tapestry from the well of this tree, which would be the roots of the tree, which would be this whirlpool, where the past, present, and future is all connected. And by this kind of by this central point being hidden from us, and us not being in the kind of collective psyche, we're kind of like all lost on this terrain of like not knowing where our center is, not knowing where our center is inside ourselves, but also just not having an anchor point to this realm, to where we are. Well, that's why it's always like going to out of space rather than focusing on inner space, or the space in which we are at here. You know, terra firma, this earth, the heart, the central point. Like, of course, the swastika is now demonized. That symbol's, if that's, I don't know if that's its original name, but you know, that symbol of Axis Mundi, people won't use it now. You have the symbol of the heart chakra, the as above so below. That symbol people might not use now after Israel's been using it. I think symbols that represent our center are very, very powerful. And it seems that we've kind of been pulled in all directions of the news. I mean, most recently, the moon, the Artemis 2 like launch, that's been all over the news. The news is a noose, and it pulls us in all directions. It's like a psyop in both senses, of the PSY of psychological and the PSI of pounds per square inch, you know, to do with air and kind of, you know, suffocating because people like have kind of been pulled apart from our center, which is the center of the earth, because we are the earth. We're connected to it. We are the world soul. We're seeds of this tree, and we're supposed to bloom. But really, there's a stagnation of our water, which a tree needs to, which the seed needs to grow, and the ori, the light. So we're like seeds, or like we're caterpillars in a chrysalis, just waiting to emerge. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling. Pass the mic over.
And that's beautiful, brother. I like the chrysalis idea. You know, it's interesting.
Sorry, can I just say something really quickly before I forget?
Yes.
With the chrysalis, so in Chinese, the word dai means butterfly. So to die is just to change or transform, and dai is day, which is God, which is guardian of dimensions, of which we all are guardians of dimensions. Is to do with the psyche and doorways in our mind. That the word, oh god, I've just lost my train of thought because I just got a text. As he said, the boys are on the way back, so I'm gonna have to move to the other room in a minute. But oh yes, that's it. The axis mundi. That's why it's relevant to die, because the axis is access, and the mundi is mondi. So the axis mundi, the central point, this us in our core, the black sun, this black cube center of everything. To access this, the access mundi, is to access the mon day, and the mon day is the one day, which is the one God, which is one source, which is source. The axis mundi is how we access source. So I just had to say that because I thought of that the other day with a bit of wordplay. Axis mundi is how we access mundane, like one God or the Godhead or source. The literal Godhead, the four rivers, where they meet, the four heads.
Beautiful, brother. Yeah, the boys are back in town. The boys are
I'm
back
just
in
gonna
town.
move. I'm gonna just turn my camera off. I'm listening.
Yeah, man, I got you. Makes you think of that track, The Boys Are Back in Town. The house is about to turn upside down. Everything's about to go like wild. Everything's going to start like there's an element of danger in the house. You got to like watch the vases and like you got to imagine children. Like when children are healthy, they're like monkeys. Yeah. A healthy child's more like a monkey than what we see as a child on the internet. And because children are supposed to be wild and playful. They're supposed to be. It's a good sign. So it's good. It's good that your boys are wild, I think. But like, there's no other way to have a boy. Girls maybe don't normally tend to be as wild as boys. They break a lot less stuff. Let's put it that way. Boys tend to break everything. It goes with the whole story of a boyhood. But yeah, you know, the chrysolith and the you know, the pod that we're in. I like the way you put there that part of this Axis Mundi story. You see, the Axis Mundi is an ancient story of cosmology, which has got to do with astrotheology. This is the distinction I was trying to make earlier. Okay, so Shinobi's still with us. I'm betting he can hear. So the distinction is that before we had the Axis Mundi, which was like the stars governing the way this system works. Then they took the Axis Mundi and they put it on into a mountain. And when they put the Axis Mundi into a mountain, they then put it onto our world, right? So there's a symbolic connection here that I was sort of trying to say about, trying to share earlier. And you sort of triggered onto it. Toby, I'm getting confused what to call you. I'm calling you Systematic Zoo. Am I calling you Toby, or am I calling you Shinobi? Shinobi Toby. Otherwise I get confused. Too many names. But yeah, so they took something which was cosmic. Hey, Mike Straw, how you doing? Hope you're good. Hope you're feeling like you got a bit of music flowing through the Mike Straw genes. They took something that was cosmic and profound and untouchable and unknowable out there in the stars as a concept, and they turned it into a mountain that's over there with its dragons guarding the mountain. This is like what the idea is. They took the idea of a tree of life, which is a cosmic life tree, which is a symbolic thing that reaches between the worlds, between this universe and other universes. And then they said, no, it's a mountain over there, and that mountain is the peak. That's what it is. And by taking a cosmic idea and turning it into something mundane, if you can consider the idea of a mountain as being mundane, when compared to the stellar system of stars revolving around a central point, which is, in my mind, something quite much more abstract and profound. They are putting the spirit into flesh, as the metaphor goes. I don't know. What do you guys think in the chat? Are you following me? Howard, everybody in the chat? Are you guys Mike Straw? If you guys are with me. So the idea of taking something that's cosmic and purely spiritual and putting it into a context of like, there it is, you can see it, you can touch it, it's a physical object, is the same as saying that there's this divine spirit. We're putting it into one man or one woman's body, and that person will rule you like a king. And now that's what you got. And that's now your ruler, right? And so this is where my connection with the blue blood thing comes into it. Why I think it was relevant, why I think it's important to understand just exactly what they've done and how they've done it, because it sort of gives us this insight on this recognition that the spiritual has been physicalized, and in the process of the spiritual being physicalized, you now have a definition, and that definition becomes something that's quite sort of physical and definable, where before a cosmic idea is not particularly definable. The idea of an axis mundi, an invisible axis that the whole system that you can see of stars is all warping around, and that this invisible axis is like a whirlpool of energy, and that the entire cosmos that you can see is moving around this like a wheel, and it's like a snake swallowing its own tail. These are the concepts of the cosmic axis mundi. And the snake swallowing its own tail is depicted as a snake with 12 parts. And the head of the snake is Leo, and the tail of the snake is Pisces. And Cancer. And Leo is swallowing Cancer as it spins and turns around this invisible axis. And this cosmic play of force and of energy is a representation of the forces within humanity and within the soul, as it's externalized cosmically in this profound expanse of stars and the heavenly bodies that we can observe. No, it's not that. It's a mountain, and it's over there, and it's being guarded by dragons. And then the dragons were always seen as symbols of kingship, you see. So it seems to me like Rupus Negra might have come about as a myth at a time when they had annexed the cosmic and made the cosmic mundane and mortal. And suddenly we were being ruled by kings, where before maybe we weren't being ruled by kings. Maybe there was something different other than being ruled by kings. Maybe there were, spiritual forces that we were able to commune with directly. But it's an interesting concept, and let me know in the chat what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you think that there might be a correlation to the spiritual concept being made so mundane? Right, you're back, dear brother. Did you hear what I was saying, by the way? I hope you did. Well, I haven't heard him speaking yet, so maybe his mic is still off. Okay, that's fine. I get it. Shinobi's mic's not on. I hope you can hear me. Ah, there you are. Good, brother. Yeah. I thought you were talking for a second, then I realized your mic was off.
I was.
Were you hearing what I was saying about how they took something cosmic and made it mundane?
Yeah, and I was.
And that might be where the kings started with. I think that I feel there might be a connection here.
Yeah. So, sorry, I'm just trying to sort out my camera because it's connected the wrong one. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So with dragons and kings, well, perhaps there was a time when they were kin and not kings. Perhaps perhaps there was some kind of corruption along the way, and perhaps dragons were kin with us. Like we were one and the same. We were united. Because dragons, they're not just the draconian force. Of course, that's where we get draconian from, is from Draco, from the term dragon. And perhaps they were friends and not fiends. because they've been depicted as fiends, as hoarding gold, and there's been some kind of corruption along the lineage, because there's stories of dragon kings, children that were born able to with extraordinary gifts, able to astral project and other stuff. And you know, I've just started looking into this, but they were known as dragon kings, basically. So just with the words, with king, it could be kin, you know, remove the G. And with friends can become fiends. And you know, there's certainly been some kind of I guess like the dragon can be sometimes depicted as narcissist. I guess like Lucifer is associated with dragon, and you know, Lucifer is sometimes seen as narcissistic. But I think that's where it stems from, is kind of is trauma. And perhaps there are these dragons, this old energy that's been traumatized, and then now they feel the need to hoard. You know, I'm just spitballing here. I'm just going by sort of narcissists that I know, and the fact I know that the trauma that they have, and to do with the inner child and the innermost cave, and not wanting to emerge. They're still stuck in there, and like the dragons would be in Black Rock in the Garden of Eden, still hidden. I mean, the whole story of the Garden of Eden, it is, the snake is actually a dragon, because the story goes that the snake was cursed to crawl on its belly. Snakes already crawl on their belly, but dragons have wings. And I do believe that metaphysically, these dragons, who would be, in my view, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, they breathe fire, they speak wisdom, but they're very protective as well at the same time. So you have the divine feminine protection, like mothering care, but also the ability to take flight and go and hunt. That's how I perceive dragons. But along the way, they've had their wings clipped, and we've been made to fear them, and they've been demonized. And over many, many years, perhaps they've learnt to kind of hoard the gold. I don't know, man. I've not heard of Rupus, Negra and the two dragons before, apart from you mentioning it last time we had a conversation. But does it relate to King Arthur or Merlin as well? Because I've heard that King Arthur went to Black Rock, supposedly. King Arthur went to the center of the earth. So, you know, I certainly find that interesting. But what I tend to do, for anyone who doesn't know, is I always play devil's advocate and try and flip stuff around. So when I hear like this place being related to kings, well, maybe it was related to kin, and maybe the dragon were kin before they were kings, or before they were corrupted and used by others to, you know, lord over humanity, whatever. I don't know. It's always good to like kind of have the, you know, flip it and reverse it, like what if, who knows? Because I mean, we don't really know, do we? there's certainly like myths of giants, King Arthur, like, you know, even like the Fae, dragons, but these stories seem to be very real. Of course, cosmic is connected with the Fae. We've got like giant bones found, and that seems to be very real. We have dinosaurs, which is, come on, don't know source. And the source is to do with our history, but also where we're from. And is that to do with our center as well, the center of this realm, like the source where all things are from? You know, who knows?
Yeah, brother. That's interesting. It's good to keep things open and flowing. Yeah, the Rupis Negra story with dragons. Like I've come across different versions of stories. Some, one that I came across a long time ago was a story, I think, of like a dragon at night and a dragon during the day, and that these dragons would like guard over the mountain, right? And there was a story about someone trying to go to this place, and they couldn't go there by their ship because the magnetic force wouldn't allow them to get to the mountain. I forget who this was. It's a very long time ago. And then there was a story of dragons, and they saw a dragon and they thought they'd come back from the other side, and they saw there was another dragon, you know? And I think the dragons just represent the polarity of energy, the potential, right? That we're talking about here. Ow. Potential to have your toe pecked by a cockatiel that's demanding to be on the stage. Okay, you can go on the stage. Demanding to be on the stage and using my toe as but he's got ulterior motives. See, his ulterior motives is to get over there and chew those things. His cables there. He loves cables. He loves cables. Give him a cable to chew, and you've made a friend for life. I think I'm gonna put you over there. How's that sound? Oh yeah. Now I've put you somewhere, haven't I? Let's see you get out of that one. You'll figure a way to get around there and go around on the chairs. But so yeah, and I was just looking at something now. I was just Googling something a moment ago. And I was looking at like how it relates to the Chinese story. And I thought that was quite interesting. And how that relates to like what is the Chinese version?
So
Yeah.
Franklin, so I'll just let you know what today is in the galactic calendar. Today it's a solar plexus chakra day, Thursday, and it's a red self-existing dragon guided by navigation. What are the chances? So can people see that?
Nice.
And
Gotta
we're
love
talking
that.
about dragons and navigation.
The little guy's name is Agathon, Mike Stroh. Agathon. He's my little baby. He's cheeky as hell though. He comes and bites my toes really sore to get like, he's noticed there's a button on my toe. If he presses it just right with his beak, then the lift kicks in, right? The hand comes down. It's like a lift. He can go back like to the top floor because he needs to get onto that little counter there, that little tabletop where I've got like crystals and a phone and there's cables there. And he's like, ooh, cables. me beak can sense the cables. He loves cables. I've got to keep him off this place. It's dangerous because, electricity and cockatiels don't go that well together, as you can imagine. But yeah, let me pop this onto the screen. Let me put it onto the stage. Let's get a look at what we're seeing here. So the Chinese idea, Rupis Negra, combined with the center of the world ideology, is primarily understood through the cultural and cosmological concept of Zonghua. I think the first one sounds close, although I'm not Chinese. I wish I could. Sorry. So the Chinese equivalent is viewed itself as the Middle Kingdom, Zonghua, positioned at the center of the world, surrounded by the barbarian lands. And they have the Kunlun mountain. The Kunlun mountain is considered the Axis Mundi, you see? So there, the Kunlun mountain is the Chinese version of Axis Mundi. which is what we're talking about here. And they've got a Chinese vertical map that represents these popularized Hao Xingguang to reframe the world map to place China at the center. Interesting. So, the Kunlun. Now, have you seen any movies about Kunlun? There is actually a film. There's actually a film that was made by Marvel. I don't know if you followed it. It's about a guy who does Tai Chi and different martial arts. And he's the Iron Fist. Have you watched the Iron Fist?
No, is that Doctor Strange?
No. The Iron Fist is a guy who, as a child, has an accident with his father and his mum on their private jet up in the Himalayas. And he ends up being rescued by a monk who takes him through a mythical doorway into another world. And in that mythical doorway, he goes to a place called Kunlun, where he learns this martial arts of Kunlun, and he becomes the best fighter. And the best fighter wins the Iron Fist. And he then becomes the Iron Fist, and then he comes back to Earth, and they're fighting against this organization called the Hand. And it's actually there's some really interesting martial arts in this little story, especially in the beginning, where he's doing some really clever little Jackie Chan Tai Chi type things with security guards and stuff. But the idea of Kunlun has been popularized in our Western mythos as well through this. And and I'm wondering about the dragons.
It's a TV series. I think I did watch a few of those episodes, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So the Kunlun Mountains is basically the Axis Mundi as they know it in China. Let me Kunlun myth and dragons. Let's see what they say about the Chinese version of the story. So it's called the ancestor of all mountains, the sacred axe at the range, and it's referred to as the dragon's spine. So that's quite interesting. It's called the dragon's spine in Chinese, huh?
It's interesting. It's the spine as well, because the spine is, of course, the center, and also the spine is also like the spin. So it's like the three fates or the three Norns spinning spinning the threads of destiny.
Yeah, so here you can see I've sort of put up here for this idea so we can see it better. It's the Taoist paradise. It leads to the Taoist paradise, which is Meru, which is paradise, the domain of the gods, which is Olympus, right? Where you get to go if the place to live, best real estate you can get. So the ancestor of dragons, the ancient Chinese geography and cosmology considered the Kunlun Mountains to be the ancestor of dragon veins, with the mountain range itself representing the spine of a massive dragon snaking across China. So, it's initially depicted as a human head and a leopard body, served by two bluebirds or green birds, though she had transformed into a more human-like deity. So now we've got an interesting idea of a human head, leopard body deity that is serviced by two bluebirds. And it relates to immortality and travel. It's the gate between heaven and the source of the elixir of life. The Taoist immortals, the Jian, often depicted visiting or living there, sometimes riding on the backs of cranes or dragons. The dragon imagery, legends describe that in the West, at the end of Kunlun Range, exists a black sea, and the jade pool of the Western Queen Mother, The surrounding land is filled with outstanding energy aura associated with the dragon veins. So there's various stories. And the specific mention of 2 dragons is often linked to the general Taoist theme of dragons as mythical, powerful creatures associated with the water and the sky. So there's the dragon of the water and the dragon of the sky. That's right. That's right. The one rules over the sea and the one rules over the air. One flies and the one's like a worm. Those are the 2 kinds of dragons that you get, by the way, mythologically, yeah? You get the worm dragons that don't have wings, but they are like in the water and in the earth. They can move through the earth and through the water. And then you have the dragon of the sky that can move through the air or through the fire. Yeah. So that's quite an interesting concept there. And then there's another common myth that involves 4 dragons: the long dragon, the black dragon, the pearl dragon, and the yellow dragon, who petitioned the Jade Emperor for rain. And another interpretation involves the 2 feathered beings, or birds serving the Queen Mother. So the 2 main rivers of China, the Yellow River and the Yangtze River, are thought to originate from this region, often considered part of the dragon pulse or dragon vein system. So that, you know, even China's got the old story, huh? Even their rocket.
The demiurge kind of reminds me of a dragon as well, with the head of a lion and body of a snake, and that is a dragon which has been demonized, of course. I've been thinking recently that, because the whole story of that as well, like Sophia coming from the pleroma, that is the black sun, the pleroma, I believe. And it's interesting that she came from the pleroma, which is from the black sun, because there's a correlation of the black sun and black rock, of my understanding so far, and that the demiurge was birthed from Sophia, and it was like it created the world in its image. I've been thinking recently that, like, perhaps the demiurge, perhaps this dragon, this demiurge, is the world, like it is us, and we're here to basically, like, it's a blind dragon, blind god, and it views the world through us, but we're a part of the demiurge. We're birthed from Sophia, from the earth, from wisdom, from, you know, from the pleroma, and that we're all a part of the demiurge, and that basically we're basically part of its healing, like, because the demiurge has I'm on a live. The demiurge is like this dragon who was shunned by its mother, hence why it has narcissistic traits. Wants to be controlling, I guess. This is what the demiurge is, like the ruler of this realm. But we are certainly connected to it, I believe, and that we're all a part of it, and that we need to kind of... Orion, I said I'm on a live. Can you go away? Sorry, he was just like there hovering behind the curtain. I just told him on the live, so it's yeah. I think he wanted to show me a dead bee, but if I give him attention, he'll just come back and he'll hover here, and then he'll think it's okay to run and shout, like to run over here and just shout in the mic and stuff. So I've got to be quite strict with him, because there was a time when I did let him just, but yeah, come and say hello, but a few times he was just shouted, like, you know, and it does put me off, you know, having these conversations, talking about this stuff. I'll go see him in a minute. I'm not horrible, honest. It's just you've got to have boundaries with kids. you know, this is why, like, hopefully we might be moving next spring, and then I'm going to have a space to be able to record podcasts and produce music and stuff, because it's kind of like, it's so chaotic, this space, and having to like move around as well, and then like with the kids running in, and you know, bless them. But yeah, I can't remember what I was even talking about. So
we used to have an advert in South Africa where there's this cleaning product called Domestos. It's a kind of a cleaning bleach for toilets and floors and what have you. It's like a strong cleaning thing. And like you see the children running through the house. The house is clean and they run through and there's like mud everywhere. And like the place looks like it's been trashed. Looks like it's had like circus animals and cows and bulls and pigs and everything running through the house, you know. And then the woman comes in and she shakes her head and she slams this thing down on the counter in front of you, and the camera zooms in. She says, "Bang, kids. That's why I use Domestos," you know. But no, I get where you're coming from. You know, boys love to test the boundaries. They normally mean well, but then once you, if they see there are no boundaries, then there will be no boundaries. So I get where you're coming from.
Well, just with regards to the demiurge, I just remembered what I was talking about, is that it has the head of a lion, body of a snake, and it reminds me of the 1 and the 9. And it reminds me of the Enneagram, the 1 being the sun, and being related to Leo, like the lion, and then you have the snake, body of the snake curling round through the 9 into Pluto, because the snake is to do with intuition, it's to do with inwards. So the head of the lion, body of the snake, is to do with the inner worlds and outer worlds. It's to do with the sun and the you know, the dark, the light and the dark, I guess. And then it also kind of reminds me of, you know, the 1 and the 9 is AI as well, which is interesting. But yeah, you were doing I think we were having a discussion together, and I wrote loads of notes which I'll have to find about the lion, the snake, and how it relates to the 1 and the 9, and to do with like the demiurge as well. I'll have to try and dig those out.
Yeah, man, I completely get what you're talking about, and there's definitely a powerful resonance here. Wow, he's getting harder and harder to manage. I'll put him on the floor. I've got 5 minutes until he eats my toe again. Yeah, it's like another boy, you know. There ain't no boundaries with a cockatiel, you know. You just gotta accept that there ain't gonna be no boundaries. Let me pull up the image and I'll show you a simple version of it all. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, thank you, StreamYard, for not taking forever. That was very nice of you. You didn't. So the image is up there. Isn't that weird? There we go. It just took StreamYard a while to get it up. So yeah, is what we're talking about, how the 9 becomes the 1. And in the center of the Enneagram, which we can only relate to no number, right? The 0. And as we know, the Pluto, the plow that tows the wheel around in circle, the plow toe, is at the center, because it's the only planet that has no number. You know, Uranus is number 4. The mystic Neptune is number 7. Yeah. And the other 7, well, we know what the other 7 are. And obviously the Neptune relates to the south node of the moon as well, in the same way that the Uranus relates to the north node of the moon. And so we've got this element where number 9 represents the action that moves through the epicenter, like moving through the eye of the storm, and translates itself to become a new octave of 1 that continues the entire cycle of energy till it reaches its culmination of the end of 9, where 9 has a special relationship with Pluto. So in astrology, when we speak about Pluto, we speak about Mars. It is often considered that Mars and Pluto are the same thing, but on a different octave. So Pluto has the same vibrational frequency as Mars, but on a higher octave. So 9 is able to move through. When 9 becomes perfected, that it becomes transcendent, it moves into the sphere of Pluto, which is through into the underworld, and through the underworld into the spiritual domain. And so that's moving through there. It comes out as the number 1, carrying the essence of Pluto, which is no number, 0, 10. And now 10 becomes an octave of 1. And then 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, it moves through and it comes back carrying a second essence of Pluto, which is a 0, as 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. Then it moves through again, and it comes through once again reborn from the underworld, with having passed through Pluto 3 times, carrying 3 essences of the Pluto, 3 zeros, becomes 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, up till 9,000, and then 10,000 to 100,000, and 100,000 to 1,000,000. And so these, you can see now where our decimal system comes from, right? Comes from the Enneagram, comes from the Ennead, it comes from the 9 numbers. And it has to do with Pluto representing no number, and that no number is carried on the back of a number as a imprint of no number of cosmic space. And that cosmic space's divine feminine essence is carried as a 0, because it's the circle of why circles relate to the divine feminine. And that principle of 9 moving through the no man's land of the eye of the storm of antimatter of the underworld to be reborn as number 1, that is what we're talking about. What you were sort of getting at, which is quite interesting. I think that's what you were talking about. Am I correct?
Yeah. So with the demiurge being responsible for like trapping souls, if so, for example, with the Enneagram, if you picture the Enneagram as the Earth, and then Pluto is in the center, like black rock, and in my mind's eye, I believe it's an eye. I think in the center of the Earth is a pupil, is a black hole, and that black rock really is a black hole, which is the black sun. And that perhaps there's an energy there that one could call a dragon, that perhaps is the demiurge, that perhaps, let's just say it was a being that was created, or like it's there. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but if this being traps souls, perhaps it stops beings going through this portal that shouldn't go through the portal, and that you only go through the portal when you're ready, because dragons are guardians of thresholds. They're gatekeepers, and to pass through the center of the earth, and to expand outwards, perhaps you need to perhaps you have to earn enough credit, as in by being like not a horrible person, and perhaps the archons or so-called elite can't pass the demiurge, can't pass this dragon, can't ascend this realm, so therefore they've demonized it and given this story to say that this beast was created by Sophia, was created by wisdom because of her fall from grace, from God, from source and stuff, and that this kind of relates to the 1 and the 9, that because Mars is representative of death, or like Scorpio rules Mars as well, and then Pluto I always think is like Plato's cave is Pluto's cave, and that to go out of Plato's cave reversed is to go through Pluto's cave, which is our innermost cave, but it's not just in us. You get there via the subconscious, but it's actually the center of the earth. It's in the center. So we go through us, through the subconscious, through the programming, via like the backstage, get past all of the shadows, the puppets, the strings which are being pulled on our psyche, and then perhaps this happens when we die, but we know that the word die just means to transform and change and stuff, so we can do that while we're alive. This is the great work, to die many times while we're alive. So we do this, we go through the process internally, through the subconscious, the rivers of our psyche, open up dormant energies, let the currents flow, and then we can meet the black sun, or the center of the earth, like our center, because we are the earth, we are the world. And then we have no fear, because we have no strings pulling us anymore, because the black sun is where all creation resides from. And that it relates to Pluto as well, because with Plato's cave, it's about getting out. But what if getting out is going in? So we go into the black sun, we step into the darkness, which we've been made to fear, and we've been made to fear dragons. And perhaps at this darkness, the cave, there's a dragon, and perhaps that dragon is the demiurge. And these stories of the demiurge and dragons and stuff, we're told they're evil, so that when we get there, about to cross the threshold, about to go through the portal, to expand our mind when we're alive by accessing the black sun, perhaps we run away, because we've been made to fear the dark, we've been made to fear our own psyche, and we've been made to fear sort of, finding the truth which is found in the darkness. So this is interesting, because dragons relating to black rock, dragons are guardians of thresholds, I believe. Perhaps there are higher self, perhaps to pass this energy, because all things are energy, perhaps at their essence we need to have. So this ties into Egyptian mysticism as well, because they believe that to transcend this realm, you had to have a balance of the ka and the ba, and then you'd have your arc, which is I, or your big brother, your higher self, activated, the central pillar. The I is the center of the earth, and to pass the threshold, you need a balance of this masculine and feminine energy, which is this vortex energy, to pass through this vortex. And I find that interesting, because that's what I believe dragons are. They're a union of a masculine and feminine energy, which we all have inside us. The care of the mother of the divine feminine, to hold space, and the empathy, and be in tune with our emotions, and at the same time the sort of the action of the masculine, the fire, the arrow. So I view this as you have an arrow, which is the masculine point, the pyramid, the fire, and you have the bow, which is the arc, or the container, the holder. And then so you have the arrow and the bow, but the arc, the eye, is the target. And the whole union of this trinity of the ka, the ba, the arc, the arrow, the bow, the target, is to go through this portal in the center of us, the center of the earth, to expand, not just to leave this realm, but this, I certainly believe, is to bring the 5D into the 3D, which is already here. It's all already here, but it's about bringing the formless into form. This again ties into the energy, frequency, and vibration, that the energy is infinite, and we bring the energy into the frequency, into matter, and that activates the vibration of the eye. threw a
Yeah,
lot at you
absolutely, brother.
there.
Sorry, what was that?
I just said I threw a lot at you there. Just went off on a bit of a tangent. I think your mic's muted.
No, sorry, I was just saying what happened to you. You were sitting there and then you weren't. Like, where did you go? And but you were still, I could hear you. I was like, I couldn't see you, but I could hear you.
Dude, I was in the black sun. I was in the center of the earth for a moment.
Yeah, man. I think what you're saying is very like touching onto something deep, which is the notion of bringing the mundane into the domain of the spiritual and vice versa, you know, and bringing the unity between the spiritual and the physical mundane in such a way that they become a unified expression of each other, right? In a functional and fundamental way that can be sort of seen and like acknowledged on all levels of being, both the physical and the spiritual. I think there's definitely something to this. I think it's a powerful notion. I mean, this is what the tree of life or Yggdrasil, like this is what it represents, right? Is you know, Ig, fire, three, soul. So the three fires of the sun, Yggdrasil, which is like, you know, the radiance of the three elements, those three fundamental elements, the principle of energy, the principle of form, and the principle of mind, bringing the mind, the energy, and the form together, you know, and so that we can produce a succinct sort of structure that reflects all three of these realms or these states of being. And I also think, you know, the ideas that's often lost when we think about the tree of life, like to a lot of people, is that in order to go into the spiritual domain, you've got to go through the roots. That's quite an interesting idea. You got to travel down into the tree in order to transcend. Because you don't want to travel on the tree, you want to travel through the tree. And the only way that you can enter into the tree is, well, through the roots. So you've got to go in under the ground, into the roots of the tree, and then be drawn in through the tree, through its system, into the spiritual domains. So there's definitely a powerful sort of synergy here that's being expressed. And I noticed we've been on this for like 2 hours. Shall we start wrapping it up? My boy's out there. I want to go check on him soon. But I mean, after like it's 7 minutes past, I don't know, maybe sometime in the next 10 minutes or whatever. Are there any ideas that you wanted to throw onto the proverbial spit, since we've got it out and we've got the flames roasting?
Yeah, well, yeah, when I was talking about well, you were saying with the Enneagram, the 1 and the 9, and then 9 being Mars, the action being Mars, and Mars is ruled by Scorpio, and then we have that relating to death as well, which is interesting because Saturn is also related to death too. You know, the tarot card 13 is symbolized by Saturn. Saturn's the Grim Reaper. Like, the thing is with Saturn, in my understanding, is that, because I didn't understand the correlation between Mars and death, but now I kind of do, because Mars is related with war and it's to do with Scorpio and stuff. There's lots of links with death, which I now understand. But with Saturn is more the journey of death after you've died, after you've passed, because you have Kairos time, flow time, the opportune moment. Like with time, we all die, we all pass on. And then you have Kairos time, which is to do with the hexagram, the north of Saturn, magnetic north, as above, so below. And then you have the black cube relating to Saturn, and then you have the black rock in the center of the Earth, which is a rock or a stone, which again relates to the Earth and the heart, or like the center. So yeah, I'm just trying to work all this out, because there's so many different threads to weave. But I think that the biggest thing I'm going to take from our conversation today is that I think that, well, I'd like to get your thoughts actually, because you mentioned black rock being related to like kings and stuff, and like what are your thoughts, like, before we leave, on black rock and these four rivers? Like, do you think it's just symbolic? Because there's so many threads here to do with the center and magnetic north and the four heads and these 4 points and 4 rivers, and obviously Eden as well, you know, and like a portal. And it seems that that's where we all go at one point in time. It seems that maybe the journey that we undertake when we do die is to the center, although we should take the journey to the center rather than going outwards. We should go into it. But what are your thoughts? Do you think it's a real like black rock, like, or do you think it's just like symbolic? Or because I'll close with this. I'll just say that I'm gonna say that I think it's an eye. I think this realm in which we're in is an eye, which is something I'm going to work on, because the eye is the ninth letter, which relates to Mars, which relates to death, going into Pluto's cave. Magnetic north, there's this to do with the Ouroboros as well, and like, yeah, this is something I'm going to work on, but I think it's like it's related to like an eye. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I think it's I think that it is spiritual notion, it is a symbolic notion, it is a highly symbolic conceptual perspective, which does exist on another plane of existence, because it can be conceptualized, means conception, birth. Though I think that, like, as all things, there is an as above, so below. And I think so the spiritual notion of this abstract concept, which exists on an alternative plane of existence, does have a physical root here on the physical plane. And so that physical root in the physical plane would then, in my mind, be, you know, an actual black rock. And, you know, when you mentioned the eye, I think like there's something to that. You know, the eye is in, it's going inwards, right? So the word in, the word imp, the word is, which is about being, right? What something is what it is being. It's connected to the concept of being, because is a verb. And so is represents action, even though it's a state of being. It's you are this, you're maintaining being something, right? Because there's always going to be a choice, and being is an action. We think of being as just being something that is, but when being becomes an action, then we are what we are. And so there's this connection between Mars and Pluto once again. Pluto being that like profound gateway into the spiritual and the underworld. So yeah, I think it's both. But that's my answer.
Yeah, man. It seems that many things, if not everything, is trifold, or at least anything which, in my understanding, has truth, is symbolic, is both physical and metaphysical. So we have the symbol, and then we have the kind of physical thing in matter, but then also the metaphysical aspect. Like, that's the Trinity. And what I found is that when things have a common thread, when they have a common thread, when you can see them in all planes of existence, not just in the matter, but when you can sense it in the metaphysical, and then also when the symbolic speaks to you as well, and speaks 1,000 words or tells a story, something which the material doesn't tell you. The symbol can tell you, can tap into the metaphysical, and it can tell you a story which no one else can. This is why it's quite difficult to explain what I call abstract concepts. They're just concepts which I've never heard before, so I'm trying to work it out, trying to explain stuff that kind of makes sense to me, because it's kind of like a of like loads of different avenues of like experiences which I've had of a bit of like a myth, a bit of this symbol, a bit of this etymology, and it's like makes sense. But then to like vocalize it, kind of bring the spirit into the matter, into the physical plane, is a process, but it's a very enjoyable one to try and work things out. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago when I started looking into all this stuff, I was so set on like waking everyone up, just being like, can't you see, like everything's like a lie, like this and that. But over time of like looking more and more into the unseen and the potential of things, and not just taking everything that I hear for as it is, not, like, what is the weight behind it? What is the weight behind stuff? Because we get given a lot of smoke and mirrors. We get, especially with AI, a lot of smoke blown up people's ass, and to try and work out what's true. But I think to do that is like it has to hit home on a few different levels, because that is what this realm is. It's on different levels. We have the material, and then we have the kind of unseen, and then we have the potential of what could be as well, and it's up to us what could be. So we can take stories from the past, we can take stories from the future, what we perceive the present to be, but really, like, people that tell you what stuff is, people who say this is our history, this is what it is, like, really, they don't actually know, or if they do know, they're limiting themselves, because the thing is with things is it's so malleable. Like, I've tried to become more like water, kind of be like in flow, let things come in, let things go, kind of do like psychic tai chi with this information, kind of like bring things in, and then let some stuff go, and then see what sticks, and then come back to things later. So yeah, I love these get-togethers. They're great. I'm sure people in the chat do as well. It was quite short notice today, wasn't it? But yeah, man, had a great conversation today. Thanks everyone for joining us.
As always, brother, it's been an honor, and I also enjoyed lovely what I call a tongue wag. And I pray that people in the chat got what you came for. You enjoyed the tongue wag too. Sending you all big love, big blessings. Thank you for joining us. And do share this and tell us in the comments after the show, in the actual comments of the video. That helps YouTube sort of like decide whether or not to show people. And make sure you smash likes and all of that, and share it to your Facebook or wherever you share it, or to your YouTube or wherever. So people see the conversation, and tell us what you think. Those of you that are watching retrospectively, what do you think? What do you think? Is Rupus Negra just a concept? Is it a physical mountain? Is it a spiritual place? What do we relate it to? Obviously, it's connected to many of the old stories. Yeah, it's connected to Agatha. It's connected to, I think the ancient Greek stories, and obviously the Tree of Life. Yggdrasil would be a more ancient version, I think, of the concept. With that said, have an absolutely lovely day. Om Shanti. Take it easy. Keep smiling. And thank you, dear Shinobi. Check out Shinobi's channel as well. Smash a like, smash a follow. What you would call, become a subscribe, and check out his channel's videos too. He's also been starting to make some more videos, so you'll probably see more of them pop up. Other than that, take it easy, keep it sweet, keep it smile alive on your face, and let that show the world the beauty and the grace. And don't be lost in the race of the fast pace. Om Shanti. Big love, dear brother.
Take care, man. See you soon.
Take it easy, everybody. Till next time on Saturday, same time, same place, 6 p.m., 5 p.m. UK time, 12 p.m. during the day, New York time, and wherever else you are. Good luck calculating that. Big love, everybody. Take it easy. Om Shanti. Bless.